What's up, guys? It's Sean from Window Tint Warriors, and this is part 2 of the frameless door windows, where I'm going to show you specifically how to cut the back window, since it is a little different compared to the front. There's no gaskets on the front, there's no mirrors attached to it. So I'm going to show you the proper shifting techniques and as well as the installation. But let me do the prep really quick, and then we'll get into laying out the material and cutting it. All right, now that we have the window all cleaned, let's go ahead and lay out the bulk material, and I'm going to quickly show you guys how to cut this out so that it lines up perfectly around the entire perimeter. Then you use a 40-inch roll, half for the other side, half for this one. We use an Expel Color Stable Expel Prime CS. The bottom edge on this door is straight, so we'll line that up first. Then we'll go ahead and mount it in place. And if you guys watched the last video, we're not going to tuck the gasket on this door on the inside. You can, to give yourself more room, but I'm trying to make this a generic video to give you the idea of just hand cutting in general on a frameless door. Cut the excess material off, save it for the other side. You can approach this many different ways. Well, 2 different ways. You can cut the front edge, shift it back, and then cut the back edge, and then reposition it so that they're even on each side. I like to start with cutting the front edge. I'll shift it back, mount it in place. I'll cut the whole top along with the back, and then I'll shift it before I do any final touches. So let me just go over that, because that can sound very complicated when I explain it. So we have the film lined up to the bottom. We're gonna squeegee it as if we're squeegeeing it into place, because we want all the fingers and all the tension to go down to the bottom to create these fingers as if we were installing it. So we want that cut to line up exactly. So I'm going to cut the front edge first, nice and straight and consistent, same angle all the way through. Rip that away, and now we'll release the squeegee mount by spraying with soapy water between the film and the glass. Release that, and we're going to take the front edge, and then we're going to shift it back so that we have a gap about 1/8 of an inch. You want to make it so that it's double what you want the gap to be on the entire perimeter. So we're going to shift this back and mount it into place, cut the top and the back edge, and then we're going to release that, and we'll do a test fit to make sure, but that should line up perfectly around the entire perimeter. So we have this shifted, squeegee it out as if we're installing it again, bringing all the tension down to the bottom, and then we'll cut the top along with the back edge. Now when you cut the top edge, just do a straight continuation and then restart the cut for the back. Last thing you want to do is try to radius the blade there, end up dulling it out, and then when you do cut that back edge, it'll create a little jitter, causing a shark bite looking tear in the material. So we'll cut the top edge first, and then the back edge. And then we can hand trim that radius. But now when we release the film, aside from the fact that we have to shrink it and still cut up the radiuses, when we release the film and then put it back on, as if we were installing it, but we're lining it up from the outside, we should have a nice even gap around the entire perimeter. Now keep in mind, if you have a finger on the top like this, it'll cause the bottom to bow out more, so you'll have an inconsistency here. That's why I always say to mount it as if you're installing it if it hasn't been shrunk yet, because you will get an inconsistency that will be fixed after you shrink it. So that looks perfect. We have a nice tight gap around the entire edge. Let's clean up the edges or the radiuses on the corners, and then we'll go ahead and shrink it. Nice and tight on the tops, matching the factory edge. And then on the bottoms, just make sure they're nice and crisp so there's no peeling issues. We'll line this up to be shrunk so that it's overlapping the top and the back. squeegeeing across the top, bringing all those fingers down to the bottom. I'll go ahead and shrink those. Once we have that form to fit, we'll do a little bit of a snap curl, pulling the film away, heating it up like so, giving it just that extra shrink so that it sucks to the window across the bottom since we're not tucking that bottom gasket. I'll mount this on the outside to be applied. We'll do the spray squeegee spray on the inside and then we'll slap this on. Spray it, squeegee, give it a final mist, feel the liner. Now the back doors on frameless cars are a lot easier because you don't have to worry about that front seal jamming you up at all. The only thing you have to worry about, which is the same on the front door, is the bottom edge, just getting that film behind there. So line it up to the top of it, lay down the top, open the weather stripping up with a corner tool, allowing the corners to lay in. I like to work on the corners first and then work the bottom across. And once you have the entire bottom edge below the seal, then you can start repositioning it without it getting bunched up on the bottom. Run your fingers across the top and the sides to make sure there's no overlap, and that's perfect. Now when I squeegee out this window, I like to start from the back edge and work towards the front. And then now I can start here while holding the film on the dot matrix, or if there was no dot matrix, same concept. Gives me a place to hold. If the film were to be moving at all, you'd be able to stop that from happening. Now when we do the bottom edge, you can push on the glass and open up that bottom section, or we could do like we did on the front door and use an easy reach tool. Open up that seal and squeegee down. And we can push out the top with the blue Huck towel and the heat gun with the gray lid coat card, and then we'll go on the outside and heat up the bottom edge and push out any fingers that are popped up. One thing you don't want to do is heat up the dot matrix from the inside too much, because if it is pulled away and not mounted properly, you can see this window is stuck down very well. We do have a little inconsistency in the cut here, and I can use a straight edge ruler on the inside and just finish that off. That could have been the blade angle was just not the right way all the way throughout. So I'll clean that up after the film dries. But like I said before, you don't want to heat the dot matrix area up from the inside. It's just like if the film was peeling away from the inside, you wouldn't heat it from the inside because it'll curl up and then it won't actually tack. So you always want to heat the dot matrix up from the outside and then push it with the yellow turbo squeegee from the inside. But since I did scrub this with the steel wool, it's laying down very nicely and there's no need to do any further work with it other than these fingers down on the bottom. You can see how I'm leaving the gray lid coat card down between the gasket and the glass just to keep the pressure off of the fingers while I'm heating up the outside. That way it's not causing them to pop up as I'm heating them. These may need some heat from the inside. Looks like they got caught up on the gasket a little bit. So I'll show you guys how to, if you have a little inconsistency. Now if you do have a little inconsistency like that and it's very minimal and it's extended further rather than being too far in, and you're not going to cut off too much material, you can use a straight edge like a ruler. It's going to be hard to see on the camera. We'll line that up as best as possible. You want to make sure that you have a lot of pressure against the window. And we'll go ahead and trim that. Pull that away. And we have a much nicer, cleaner cut, and you can see the little piece that we cut off here. That made the edge perfect. So that's how you cut and install the back door on a frameless window with that square type of situation, which is like on pretty much all frameless doors on the back, like the Teslas. Just cut one side, shift it, cut the top and the back side, and then you'll have a nice even perimeter around the entire window. I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment.